Good afternoon, everybody. I will be teaching you how to do Champ de Avon from 1890 today. It's going to be in step-by-step short videos because until I get 1,000 subscribers, I can't do live streams. So they will come in the future. In the meantime, I'm going to show you the equipment very briefly, and then we'll get to it. So the numbers of the videos will show you each step. So it'll start with Champ de Avon 1 and Champ de Avon 2, etc, etc. Okay, and if you can post your results on the Facebook page or the Instagram page, I would be very grateful. So let's get cracking. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. This is today's picture. I've got it on my iPad. You can just print it out, whichever is easiest. So let's get rid of that. Okay, things you will need: table covering, newspaper, make it easy. This is watercolor paper. It's 250 gram GSM, so it's pretty thick. It's a little bit more like card than paper, but it'll stand a bashing with tissues and paint and everything else that we use in this project. Okay, ordinary kitchen roll. You'll need about 4 bits, and acrylic paint. You need a medium blue, a light blue, and a white. Any combination of those, and of course your 12mm tubes of watercolor. So these are Royal Langnickel, which oddly don't come with orange. So I've got a spare tube of orange from another pack. Again, you could just use some light red, add a little bit of extra white. Oil pastels need to be pretty decent quality. I get on quite well with these Pentels. They work pretty well in class. But paint can be cheap. Any paint will do, basically. Pastels, they need to be pretty good. Otherwise they won't stick. Okay, the last thing you need is a pen. I'm going to use a Sharpie so you can see more clearly. You could use a biro if that's all you can find. You can use a pencil. The best thing to use would be a flesh-colored pencil because it will disappear that much easier. But you can also, if you're a beginner, you can get lost with your construction lines. So I would recommend using a biro to begin with. Okay, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is sketch out our composition, what I like to call the skeleton of the painting. So we'll break it down step by step. So simply follow these instructions as close as you can. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, but somewhere near will certainly do. So the first thing we're going to do is draw our horizon line. So we're going to choose a spot just below halfway, and we're going to go straight across one side to the other. So I'm starting on the left. I'm going to sketch out a nice flat line from left to right. The second thing I'm going to do is about 1 centimetre above from the left hand side. I'm going to draw another line parallel to approximately 1/3 of the way across the paper. So 1 centimetre to 1.5 centimetres. The next thing I'm going to do is add the trees in the midground. So on the other side of the field we have got a set of 5 trees. These trees are approximately twice the height of the hills in the distance to the other side of the field. So twice as high as this gap here. And we're going to draw them as if we were drawing cotton wool blobs. So we're going to have 1, 2 overlaps. Number 3 is right in the middle of the picture and leans to the left. Number 4 and number 5 are cotton wool balls that have been teased out. Instead of tall, they're shorter and squatter. Okay, just to recap, so just below halfway we've got a horizontal line from left to right, 1 to 1.5 centimeters above that, running parallel, we have a line that goes to 1/3 of the way across the paper, and then we have a family of trees, our cotton wool balls. Tree 1 and tree 2 are about twice the height of the hills, overlapping. Tallest tree is in the center, leaning to the left. And we have 2 shorter squatter brothers here sitting on the first line. Okay, now the big tree on the left starts approximately the same distance below this line as this started above the line. We're going to end up with a big D shape that's going to come off the page approximately here. The belly of the D is going to reach out to the tree and come off the page there. So we will have something like that. Okay, so the big tree on the right, if you've done this workshop before, you'll know we describe it as a snowman, and this is the snowman's body. Now we're going to put the snowman's head, which is going to fit here. It's not as big as the body, and it doesn't stick out as far. So we start inside the top of the D, the backwards D, and this is the stave of the D. And what we end up with is a pizza slice in the top right hand corner. There's the point of the pizza, and there's the crust. Now, this snowman has a hairdo. So where the 2 lines intersect here, we're going to put an additional curve, curving up and out. It's not going to quite reach to halfway, and this is purely to mark in where the foliage of the tree is in shadow, and it's just here. Okay, now the tree also has an arm. So the snowman's arm comes out from the middle of his body, stretches out in a flat ellipse above the 2 shorter squatter brothers here. So we leave a gap. It reaches out, but it does not reach the tallest tree over here. And then underneath the tree, we are actually going to have a sort of Y shape. We don't need to worry about that too much. It's just a branch dipping down from that snowman's arm. Okay, right. Now we are going to do the bouncing ball motifs. So in this particular painting, we have got a number of shadows in the field. What they actually do is radiate out from this point here. So the very first bouncing ball motif involves 2 bouncers. So from the base of the tree, this is the far side of the field. So we leave a small gap, and we're going to have a curve followed by another curve which ends there, just under tree number 2. So we have a very flat bouncing ball motif. Okay, something like a child's seagull drawn, a bird flying far away. Okay, the second bouncing ball actually has 3 bounces. It starts in the same place. The first bounce takes it just below the original, and then we follow the second one. This one bounces on again, and it sticks out past the line of the very first tree. So we have 1, 2, 3 starting in the same place. Okay, and on the left hand side, from this point, we have a reflection. So again, another shadow reaching out, and there is a gap between the 2 shadows. The one stretching out from the tree, stop here. The reflection on the other side stops here. So we have actually a gap through the middle. Okay, now the biggest of all the bouncing ball motifs separates foreground from midground. So we are going to start beneath the tree here, and this time we're going to have a very large seagull wing. And that comes off the page So we end up with a very simple shape, a giant squashed M. As you can see, we have this repeating over and over again in the picture. Okay, now, just because this is the first time we've done this in this method, we're going to split these hills in the distance now, just to give new people a bit more of an idea. So we're going to split it 2/3 to 1/3. So what we want is a curve and a curve. And just in here, we've got the egg of a tree and his brother tree on the left hand side, and we've got the eyebrows, which are just bushes hiding in the dip on the other side of the field. And that completes our layout. This is the skeleton of the picture. Now we are going to add the flesh. Okay, so now it's time to start fleshing out the picture. We've got our basic composition, line 1, line 2, all the trees in the center, the snowman tree in the corner, and the bouncing ball motifs, which are all around the picture. Okay, so we take our medium blue and we go with a splodge about the size of a 10p piece at the top of the sky. Directly underneath, we will have a blob of the lighter blue, about the same size. And then underneath, we want 2 blobs of white, one on the left and one on the right. And then we take a piece of our kitchen roll. So the kitchen roll, we want it screwed up loosely. Imagine you're making a snowball and you don't want to hurt the person you're having the snowball fight with. So what we're looking for are lots and lots of little triangles and facets. Okay, so what we want to avoid is a rabbit's foot. Rabbit's foot gives us no interesting impressions. So we want a loose ball with our tissue with lots and lots of little triangles and facets, and that's going to make many brush strokes in one go. Okay, so we're going to take from our first reservoir at the top, and we're going to be potato printing our way from the top left hand corner all the way through the hairdo of the snowman, and we're going to work our way down in stripes. Just making sure that we get rid of any naughty bits of white paper. Okay, now while we've still got that blue, we can fill in the trees. So consider this to be your underpainting. So we're pre-painting shadows. So I'm pinching from the sky and put into the trees. Any excess paint I can now blob into my foreground. So again, I'm pre-painting shadows. Okay. Now, same tissue, just going to give it a twist. Give myself some new facets. There we go. Now this time I'm going for the lighter blue. Take from the reservoir and then working my way down and across. Right into the tree. Just work our way around the white for now. same blue. I'm now going to just dab in gently the hills. I'll pinch a little more. This time I'm going to dab across my bouncing ball motifs, pinching some of that light blue, following the bouncing balls. Same at the bottom, a nice broken line. Okay, any excess, just dab out into the bottom foreground section. Okay, now, same tissue, twist again, new facets. So this time, I'm going to take the white, but instead of working my way across the picture, I'm going to work my way up the picture. So all I need to make sure is I come down below the height of the hills, down below the height of the trees. So I'm starting from the bottom, working my way up. Take some white from the hills, working up. Take from my reservoir, making sure I come down below the height of the hills, below the height of the trees, and I'm working up. And then I can even out. Getting a beautiful textured finish to my sky. And it looks as though I've made millions of brush strokes. Okay. And then dab off the excess along the bouncing ball motifs. Okay. And on to the next part. Next part, we're going to deal with the snowman in the corner. So he's mostly the darkest object in the painting. We are going to use a combination of black, burnt umber, violet, and Prussian blue. Any colours that are similar to those will certainly do. But what we're looking for is dark colours. So if I could get the top off this one. Ooh. Okay. So what I'm going to do is blob out in the bottom section of the snowman's body, 5 in the top, 5 in the body and 3 in the top. So these are approximately pea-sized. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So I've got 5 blobs of black in the body, 3 blobs of black in the top, in the snowman's head. Now I'm going to use my burnt umber. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm aiming at the big spaces. So again, pea-sized blob. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So we switch from burnt umber to violet. Okay. Same again. 5 in the body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3 in the head. And I'm going to switch to Prussian blue. Any dark blue will do, or the darkest blue you've got. So I'm aiming at the white paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So the most important thing we're going to do in this part is get rid of all the white paper. So again, I'm going to take a new piece of tissue and screw it up loosely, making sure I've got lots of very nice little triangles and facets, and then I'm going to do my potato printing in the body of the snowman. So I'm going to work the blue, the black, the brown and the purple together, filling the shape of the tree, the body of the snowman, that big backwards D shape. Working it in, making sure I'm getting rid of all the white paper, especially on the right hand side. Right into the top of my pizza slice, the snowman's head. Filling, blending, combining. Okay, so we've got a basic shape of the tree. So it's almost like a number 8 that's had some of its head chopped off and some of its body chopped off. That's the kind of shape we're going for. Okay, so here I can see my line that marked out the foliage that's in shadow that sticks out from the tree. So now that I've still got wet, dark tissue, I can take from here. This time I'm going to potato print, but I'm not going to block in. So what I'm doing is dabbing my shapes into the area where we have foliage in shadow. And then I'm going to move along the snowman's arm. So I get my underpainting done. Okay. Any excess paint I can now use for my foreground. So the darkest colour I want at the very, very front, because this is where I have the biggest contrast in my foreground painting. And that is the end of that section. Okay, the next part is, now we've put the darks on, we're going to put the lights on. We're going to fill the body of the field. So all of the midground from the other side of the field, we're going to work our way down through this H shape here and across the top of the foreground bouncing ball. So the first colour we're going to use is lemon yellow. So we're using our watercolour tubes and we're just going to gently dab a series of dots from left to right, following that very first line. So these are much smaller blobs. Following that first line right the way across to the tree, and then I'm going to follow the bouncing ball motif in between those two, above and underneath the reflection on the left. And again, just following those lines. And then I can have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 in that foreground part, and then I'm going to scatter bomb the entire foreground, looking at places where I have too much white paper. You can do this quite quickly, otherwise your paint will dry. So get rid of the yellow. Now I'm going to follow exactly the same pattern, this time with yellow ochre. So your slightly browner yellow. I'm going to follow exactly the same pattern. So I'm going slightly under and in between where I can. So little dots, dotting my way along, in between those bouncing ball motifs. And then scatter bomb the bottom section. lots and lots of little dots, looking for those areas of white paper. Okay, and then I'm going to do exactly the same with my lightest green. So this is a sap green, and I'm just going to follow the pattern. Horizontals in between the bouncing balls, under and over the reflections, following those blue shadows. And then I'm going to scatterbomb the bottom section. Right, so we have a nice scattering of yellow, yellow ochre, and light green. The very last bit we're going to add is some orange. So this is pretty intense. Going to put two very small blobs in the sky, one on the left, one on the right, and I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 in the top. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 in the middle, and then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that is all I'm going to have for the orange part. Okay, so the first bit I'm going to do is the sky. So I'm going to take a fresh tissue. Okay, I'm going to screw it up again, nice and loose. Get myself some triangles and facets, and I'm going to work in those orange parts of the sky. So using the liquidity left in the white, I'm now going to just use that orange to follow the line of the hills and that first tree. Don't worry if it gets too intense, because we will be able to calm it down in the second part. So we're just taking that orange glow from the hills and the first tree up into the sky. Okay, now another twist with the tissue. Again, lots of nice facets. This time I'm going to work across the picture, blending my yellows, my ochres and my greens and those little bits of orange into the field shape. So I'm looking to make this first line as flat as possible. I'm just bringing it up to the bottom line, just under the trees, working around the reflection, around the bouncy ball motifs, and building a depth to the colours. The closer they get to me, the more intense they will be. So although those shadows have almost disappeared, they're still there, and they're still working away underneath the field painting. Now in the foreground, again, I'm just going to twist my tissue, get some clean tissue, new facets, and now I'm going to work these areas in, trying to get rid of as much of the white paper as I possibly can. So I can do it quite quickly because the paint will dry. Of course, it depends on ambient temperatures, if you find that your paint has gone too dry, you can add some more rather than adding water. It's quite warm today, so I'm going to have to add some extra paint. But we're getting a good impression of the makeup of the field, so I'm going to add some extra ochre. So a liberal scattering of fresh paint. And I'm just going to add a touch. 3 little blobs of the light blue. Twist my tissue. And again, I'm going to work that in as quickly as I can, getting rid of as much of the white paper as I possibly can. Making sure that I go both the sides of the lines. Now, so I'm just using that light blue to follow my bouncing ball motif. I'll twist and work in the ochre. I'm going to work quite hard at this bit. And now I'm going to add some extra green into my foreground. So again, some scattering of pea-sized blobs, just because the paint's gone a little bit dry. So put extra paint on. And I'm going to add a few dots of the darker green, but only at the very, very bottom. So I'm not taking the darker green up into the picture. I'm just focusing on the very, very bottom section, the bottom inch. Okay, same tissue. Twist, get some new facets. I'm going to work that green in. Again, I'm working away at any pieces or any white paper that's shining through that I don't want. So I'm working the green into the blue. Somewhere near. Okay. And that is the end of the painting section. Okay, so once we've got the paint laid out like this, so we've covered the sky, basically we've covered all of the white paper. We've got a little bit shining through in here, but that's okay. We're going to work into that. So the first thing we need to do before we can work on to the picture with our oil pastels, we need to dry the picture. So this is where your hairdryer comes in. So I'm going to make sure that my paint is dry. should be touch dry everywhere. So we've actually ended up with some very nice texturing, which our oil pastels will pick up and give us a more three-dimensional finish. Okay,